I want to ask I want to back up a little bit. It's 1997. You're back.
Okay.
You're back at MTV, and we talked about this earlier. You're producing a show called Austin Stories, and
Right.
a fan of the show. I don't know if you see. I know we both check IMDb, but a fan of the show wrote one of the best shows MTV has ever had on their network. Now, Austin Stories, as you know, was put to bed well before its time, and I can agree to that too. But usually, any type of show on MTV or I believe Netflix calls it a limited series. Whenever they have these things and they get put to bed early, there's usually some type of behind the scenes story. Was there a story to this, or that you can remember, or that you can tell us?
Yeah, I think, some things are just not the audience that it's for, the MTV audience is just not ready for that kind of a show.
Mhm.
And I cannot remember what was going on exactly with MTV at that point. Would Comedy Central been a better fit? Probably. It was a very indie show. It was shot in 16 millimeter. It was a very slice of life show. It had three lead characters who were just post college. This would be, I guess does that make them millennials or Gen X? I can't remember in 97.
Right.
It's one of those, right?
Yeah.
And there's slackery. There's like a slackery character. There's a guy who's not yet came out as gay, and then there's a more pragmatic female character who actually has a job and who's trying to become an adult, albeit really slowly. Austin at that time was sort of like the heart of that slacker kind of idea.
Mhm.
I just think that they weren't. We had a executive at MTV. It's probably boring for people, but there was an executive there, a wonderful person, and she left there to go to Fox. And I think sometimes when you lose your champion, right, the person that is championing your show, which is a hard sell on their network, you lose the steam. Like the network's like, there's nobody there that's like championing you. And that's what happened to the Ben Stiller show as well, which is that Peter Chernin was the head of Fox at the time. He was a champion of the Ben Stiller show on Fox, and Stephen Grushow, I believe his name is, took over after Chernin left, and he was not a fan of the show, to say the least. And the end of the show. And I think that's what happened to a certain extent. They have trouble finding an audience for Austin Stories, or trouble sort of marketing it, or giving it a brand. And they just didn't have that executive there that was working to make it happen.
Yeah, and where the show gets put in the time slot could be the last nail in the coffin. We talked to Brad Copeland, who did the In-Betweeners on MTV, and that ended up dying before its time because they put it right after Ridiculousness, and nobody was wanting to see scripted comedy after watching a show like America's Funniest Home Videos.
He was like, put it on before, maybe, and then
The Fox Ben Stiller show went up against 60 Minutes at 7:00. It was the wrong time.
Yeah.
And then sometimes if you move the show to the right time, like they moved Seinfeld to that time slot on Thursdays, and all of a sudden they got eyes.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much luck involved.
Yeah.
But I think you do, if you lose your champion on marginal shows, like shows that are more ahead of their time. Like I came back from doing Austin Stories in 97, and a lot of people, for instance, Matt, the creator of The Simpsons, and Larry Charles, the great director and writer and provocateur, brilliant, near genius type of a man. I met with both of those guys. They loved it. They wanted me to write for their shows. So it had, I remember Larry Charles said to me, he was like, Larry David and I want to make a show like that. And they did. Curb. But, it was ahead of its time, and it was not really on the right network because people who watch MTV, I don't think were mature enough to give a shit about post-college kids who were trying to find their way in the world, and still have fun.
Yeah.
Why don't you subscribe? It'll last longer.